Alrighty. Sorry that I am a little bit late with this video. I wanted to start off this video by reminding people to go to the old event and make sure to click this to get all of these unlocks for the 11th anniversary. I noticed a lot of people were not aware of that. So just make sure that you check that. Now let's talk about Fiona and the spawn. I guess I should start with the other spawns because I didn't really talk about them. The Fatewoven spawn, in my opinion, is not worth it for most players. It's going to be a little bit too expensive, but there is an argument to be made to spend 15 gems. You always have a chance to get one of these monsters or some of the defense gear. So in that aspect, it is kind of nice, but I wouldn't spend hundreds of gems for any of these monsters. This one I would completely skip. All of this stuff seems way out of date. I have seen quite a few people spawn these. I do think that they are worth it, at least for free to play or for newer players. There's lots of good stuff, and getting max infused gear can be very beneficial for both PvP and PvE. A lot of these procs are quite good, so you can't really go wrong. But for specifically PvP, the Ravaging and Mandate procs would be the best if that's what you're spawning it for. But don't expect that, because there are quite a few 44 cost swords in here. So the likelihood that you're getting one of the 45 costs that will be Mandate or Ravaging, just be aware that that's quite low. Now let's talk about Fiona. So Fiona's really, really interesting. She hits pretty weak, honestly. Hitting only 2 times is quite bad. And the fact that it's time, most people can stack light and dark really easily. 860 AP is a lot, but it is not enough in most cases to be able to kill. So this is pretty weak. Erosion's really interesting. It is another form of debuff similar to Chipped Blade, except for erosion prevents penetration of nullification and vulnerability, which is honestly just purely worse than Chipped Blade, considering that most people will be running something that does damage reduction or damage reflection, not damage nullification or invulnerability. The invulnerability, though, is nice because if you have monsters that or abilities that increase your invulnerability, that can be nice. But overall, this is a PvP kind of thing. It doesn't do anything to monsters. And it's not that difficult to remove, even though it lasts 60 seconds. It's a special debuff, so it's kind of bad, kind of good. It's in a weird spot. The increases physical and magical ability power taken by 40. This is essentially a 40 ability power buff to you. Just think about it like that. So it is a weak buff to you, but it is an extremely unique buff. There are only a few abilities that do this. For example, one of the main abilities that is still used quite a bit, people have swapped to Clamorous Howl instead, but honestly speaking, if I can find it, Dragon Knight's Cry, this also does the same thing, but it's only to 20. I believe the max is 40. So this is pretty nice. But for PvE, most people should continue to use Dragon Knight's Cry, but they have already swapped to Clamorous Howl, even though it doesn't do anything in PvE. Just a quick side note, but it is an interesting thing, that, considering that there are some abilities that do that. But it is quite rare. Applies Grief. This is also really interesting. I believe ninjas can apply this as well, but it's a really interesting debuff that it basically just increases your damage as well. All allies increases Unison gauge gains by 2 for 150 seconds. That's not bad, but it's not great either. Applies readout. It's just a field. Or, sorry, not a field, a bubble to you. It is okay. It's not like a damage field or anything like that, but it's interesting. Or, sorry, bubble. I keep saying field, I mean bubble. But it's not a great bubble. Honestly, this is pretty bad bubble. Burial Eclipse. This one's really interesting. It is a PvE kind of bubble. Or now I'm saying bubble when I mean field. It is a really interesting field. Decreases stats by 40%. Decreases physical and magical ability power by 100. And increases ability power taken by 50 to enemy field for 90 seconds. So essentially they have reduced stats, they'll do less damage, and you do more damage. So you're doing 50 plus the 40. It's a really interesting, this is essentially a 90 ability power buff plus minus 40% to the enemies. It's a very, very powerful debuff to the enemies, so they won't be doing as much damage. It's kind of sad that we're missing some things. I'll go over the awakenings as well. 40k is bad. We're getting probably closer to the end of 45 cost, and the fact that we still have 40k monsters is pretty bad, but it is what it is. Twilight, that is really, really good. It gives penetration. That's exactly what you would want for PvP. However, no defense. Instead, we have elemental attack for 3, which is really good. Confuse and prohibit unison resistance for 70. The prohibit unison resistance specifically is very powerful. However, the confuse is kind of subjective. In some quests, it's really good. In some instances, it can be really good. Confuse can still be really oppressive, but hardly any monsters apply it, and basically no abilities apply it, so it's not really useful in PvP. But Prohibit Unison is very, very valuable. So, for PvP, this monster is all over the place. It does not enough damage to really kill. It applies Erosion, which is good-ish. Like, it's not good, but it's not bad. It's definitely no Chipped Blade, but it's just weird. It does... these are both interesting because they're not debuffs to the enemy's damage. They're buffs to your damage. So that's kind of interesting. And then the 40% field, this is kind of a good field, but the problem is that in the modern PvP world, this is horrible. The only field that really matters, and if you're not either applying this field or doing something in conjunction with the nebulous field that turns off constants, if you're applying any other field other than the nebulous field to the enemy field, it's just bad. The main reason is because Nebulous Field will disable your constants. Constants like Xenos gear and Sopho gear that would protect you by a percent of Unison get turned off. And then basically all unis will one-shot, even the biggest whales in the game. So this is really the meta. And any monster that doesn't apply this, but instead would apply any other type of field, could only be useful in the case where the enemy has a field protect and you need to apply 2 fields in a row. So I really don't like this for PvP just because of that. Also, you're missing specifically for PvP, you want things like diffusion. We are missing that, and we have no uni boosts either. So a solo throw or a group throw, not too great. You're also missing things like Unison, Prohibit. You do get Penetration, which is really good for both invulnerability, nullification, damage reduction, and damage reflection, which is really nice. But you're also missing out on stats. So, for example, it's a time monster, which is really hard to get defenses for. I would have really liked to have seen time defense on this monster if that is what they wanted, if they wanted this monster to be a PvP monster. But overall, this monster is pretty bad for PvP. The main thing that you're getting is an enemy field which isn't the best, and penetration. And that's it. The erosion is not as useful as chipped blade. However, it could technically do something. I'm going to put this at a solid 3 out of 10 for PvP. For guild battles, it's not much better. First round guild battles, this monster's basically completely useless. Any monster that gives something like penetration is not great for like racers. This monster also doesn't uni boost. It just increases uni gains, which is not the same and not even close to being as good. You are applying a negative field, which can be extremely powerful in the specific instance where the enemies are trying to go into the field or into the crystal. However, the meta is so overwhelming where you always need a character like ninja or archer that can remove your like a negative field from your side, that they'll just use that in the crystal and they can still one shot. If they didn't have two of them, it may impact them a little bit, but overall this doesn't reduce their damage, so it's not super useful, and they should be able to remove this field. So overall, I would mark this as a 1 out of 10 for first round guild battle throws. For Clash, I would also put this at a 2 out of 10. The only thing that I really like about this is that you're getting penetration and an enemy field. So in the small instance where the enemy throws a field protect as a prio monster and you need to apply 2 fields, this will apply the first field, then you can apply Nebulous Eclipse right after, and then the rest of your unis will kill. However, you would basically need to be throwing a Time Light Dark Star or have prepped unis. This would be the last type of monster you'd want to apply. Overall, it's not that great of a monster in my opinion, even though I'm not sure if this is the case, but these the increased physical damage about ability power may apply to monsters, but 40 ability power is so negligible when we're talking about hundreds of ability power. I don't think it'll matter that much. So overall, yeah, like a 2 out of 10 for second round Clash and guild battles. Where I think this monster really shines is in extremely niche PvE. So let's start off by talking about general quests and general PvE. This monster is pretty good. It applies a lot of really unique debuffs. Grief is really good. Reducing or increasing the ability power they take is really good. Decreasing their stats and increasing your damage is also very, very powerful. And then the 3 elemental attack, I think this is where the monster shines the most. However, in most cases, for general quests, the only place that this monster will really shine is on the boss stage. And you would have to throw this monster on the boss stage. And honestly, general quests don't require something like this. It's easier and just better to throw buffs on your team than throw debuffs, because when you throw a debuff, you have the risk that the enemy will cleanse the debuff. But not only that, if there are 3 or 5 stages, for example, those debuffs only apply to the stage that you're currently on. And so I really don't like this monster in casual, regular quests. I would say this is a solid 5 out of 10 monster, purely because it gives you Burial Eclipse, which can be very valuable for early game players, and the time elemental attack. Both of these, the Time Elemental attack will increase your damage. The Burial Eclipse will help noobs, like really, really weak and low gear score players, survive. The decrease in stats and the decrease in damage really increases survivability, which is very nice. So that's why I put it at a 5 out of 10. Now, for extremely hard PvE, we're talking about the hardest quests in the game. The like when you're going against time and you or a star and you have to use time monsters and you're locked into certain situations. This monster is unbelievably strong because it applies so many very unique debuffs to the enemies that increases your damage almost directly. So in that case, honestly, this monster is close to a 9 out of 10, maybe even considerable for a 10 out of 10, purely because you have grief and the increased damage and the field. All three of these things are very unique. And I don't want to say this lightly, but for the players that are really, really trying to complete these quests as fast as possible, like for example, the Delusion quests came back and they were really, very difficult when they first came out. And then they, like these ones, the Purgatory Ruler quests. So they kind of substituted those and the new hardest quests were the End of Star quests. For quests like these, this monster is really, really valuable because the top players will get a special gear if they clear it the fastest. And so speed is king. And the best way to clear something faster is to increase your damage. This increases your damage on a specific wave very, very well. You will notice this, absolutely. And it is noticeable when you're trying to squeeze as much damage out as possible. But for an average player, this does not apply. So in a very, very hard quest, it's like a 9 out of 10. But keep in mind, you'll need multiple instances of not just this monster, but other time monsters that are very good as well. So this is not for the average player. Now, for free-to-play players, I think this is pretty bad. I'm just going to say it. Now, you'll probably end up getting this monster if you end up spawning anyway. It's only 235 gems. We'll talk about the other things that I do think free-to-play players and newer players can benefit from. But both free-to-play players and new players, this is basically a 2 out of 10 monster. You're not really going to find a whole lot of value. It's not a great monster for you. The weapons that come with this are quite interesting. The Shuddering Axe is not horrible. It is a proc that probably sits for most classes around the 7 out of 10 to 6 out of 10 area. It gives you good cost. It gives you good HP recovery. Also increases your ability success value, which is very, very valuable for some classes, but not always required for every class. The unfortunate part is you're only doing 6XL, and the XL proc rate is also kind of bad. It could be XXL. I suppose it's not bad. It's just, it's not as high as it could be. And then, of course, we're scaling off of a specific weapon type, in this case, axes. That is bad. You generally want to scale off of a specific element if you're making a set. Just because it's easier, you don't have to worry about having swords or axes. You know, if you couldn't find any more axes, you won't max this, and then it won't proc as much and it won't be as useful. So in that case, these are pretty good procs. They're not horrible. Now the defense gear is very, very good. Everyone should have at least one type of this gear. It is, you need this for specific quests. It reduces your damage when you attack reflection. Instead of reflecting the damage and killing yourself, you would apply ones to yourself. So that's very valuable. Plus you get increased healing, HP recovery. This is, the HP recovery effect is very valuable because some quests will actually decrease your HP recovery to minus 100%. And what can end up happening is that is something that cannot be removed. HP recovery is, you can't remove it with any debuff removal. It's a super special type of effect. It can't be removed by anything. The only way to remove HP recovery negative effects are to apply HP recovery positive effects. So in this case, even if you got 100% healing reduction on yourself so that you wouldn't be able to heal at all, if you have this as a constant, then you will be able to heal. So this is very valuable just for some difficult quests and some very unique quests that reduce your healing. But this is not nearly as important as the reflection. It's just a nice piece of gear. Everyone should have at least one of these. And you don't even need to get it to level 7. So that's also very valuable. Now, let's talk about the spawn itself. You do guarantee get this monster after spending 235 gems. You would need, every time you run it, you should get roughly 1,000 points, and tokens, coins, or whatever you want to call them. You would need to spawn 3 times. So what is that? Like 7,000, or sorry, not 7,000, 700 something. 235 times 3 is 600, 705. That's my mental math real fast. And then this, if you wanted a specific weapon type and you just wanted, or a defense gear, and you just wanted to spawn it, you'd probably have to spawn it 1.5 times, or you could just do a full 2 times. That one would be 470. So yeah, I mean, it's not bad. The spawn overall, I think, can be very, very valuable for free-to-play and new players. Spawning it at least once. I believe one of these has guaranteed defense gear. So for free-to-play players or for new players, it may be worth spawning just to the 4th point to get your defense gear. You may end up finishing it, but it's definitely worth getting at least one of these defense gears. So yeah, I mean, overall the spawn's not bad. The monster is just super niche. And you'll probably end up just using her as a backline monster, part of your backline 5, to boost your time attack. So yeah, and that's pretty much everything for these spawns. I'll hopefully continue to make some more videos. Maybe I might stream today or tomorrow or something like that. We'll have to see. So yeah, catch you guys later.